Welcome back to IT Language Nugget course for ADFS. We spoke earlier in Module 3 about the attribute. In the previous session, for today, we're going to speak about issuing name ID from the OPQ attribute store. What does that mean? Issuing name ID from the OPQ attribute store, SAML token include a subject field, and this will populate with the name ID claim when present. Required for some relaying parties application, and name ID is often configured to contain the UPN or SAM account name, and desirable when user identity is sensitive. The OPQ attribute store is a hidden built-in attribute store referred to in CRL language as OPQ ID store. I think if you need to read, there are some information about the OPQ ID store on Microsoft website, some of the blogs of the MSDN.Microsoft. It's around the name identity in SAML assertion. The OPQ ID store permits the generation of unique identifiers for unique name ID, either persistent or transient. Persistent, same value generate always for the same user. A transit, different value getting generated for the user between sessions. All used in combination with token encryption to intend and obfuscate your user identity, so other claims must be hidden in the transit. How that will look like for us? Something like this. The rule that we are using is attribute extension. Then the attribute extraction rule from one of the built-in attribute store. The store take at least 3 parameters. You can see that the mode ppaid and parameter 2 will be as a seed for generating pseudo random identifier. The result also mixed with ADFS Administration specified secret entropy. Again, more information can be found on the Microsoft website around the persistence name identifier. You can see there the Windows account name using the OPQ ID store. So it looks like for us transforming the persistence identifier and issue name identifier claim. If you recall, we said like we can change it. Okay, this is how we change the incoming and the outgoing identifier. Next is the changing the transit. Now this time we also extract values from built-in store. This time the mode is using something called use entropy, which basically means that we will use 2 extra parameters, 3 and 4, to additionally mix into return identifier. Parameter 3 is to specifically entropy, which means empty means use relying party identifier. Parameter 4 is another entropy. We use authentication instance. You can see these parameters. Okay, how the parameter will look like? Something like this. Okay, this is the transfer for the parameter. So let's quickly recap about this. We spoke about the OPQ attribute store. We said the SAML includes subject in the field. Then we spoke about the 2 types, either of the OPQ store permitting either persistence or transit, and then we gave examples about each of these and how they look like. Next is configuring authentication for additional LDAP directories. So how we can do this one? Let's have a look. It's a new in 2016. Any LDAP directory may be connected. Supporting any v3 LDAP directory include untrusted ID forest. Appears as a local claim provider. You can configure and manage with PowerShell. You may restrict the scope of the directory based on the OU. You can use login ID for any attribute. You just need to have a unique directory associated with it. There may be a case where multiple internal ID forest domain exists, or other third-party LDAP directory reside in the environment. Sometimes these other directories do not have existing struts with the domain in which ADFS server farm reside. Windows 2016 introduced the ability to use other LDAP directory than the authentication ones for retrieval of the information. Only form-based authentication is supported for authentication or authenticating user from LDAP directory. Certificate-based and integrated Windows authentication are not supported at the moment. Microsoft might release them in the next, or support them in the next release. It doesn't mean it doesn't work. It does work, but support-wise. How you can configure the authentication for additional LDAP? You can see step 1. You need to define the LDAP directory connection. You can see this is what we said earlier. By PowerShell we can do it. And you can see the credential, get credential that will allow us to connect. And then you specify the directory with the host name, port, and SSL mode, and authentication type. I mean, for testing you can use port 389, with SSL mode equal to none. If you don't have certificate and you want just a quick test against AD, you can use this option. Step 2, define claim mapping in the LDAP directory. New ADFS LDAP attribute to claim mapping, and then you specify the claim, and they say specify the LDAP attribute. This is for the name. For email, I can specify the email attribute as well, like LDAP attribute, and the claim type. You can see email address, and you can see the claim name. Step 3, define the LDAP directory as an attribute store. You can specify, the ADFS, and we're using PowerShell. Add -ADFS local claim provider trust. I give it a name, identifier, and type in LDAP, and do a directory, and then specify as the previous one. Yeah. Now, one thing I need you to, which is really important here, you need to note you can have redundancy by ensuring the vendor directory is an array holding multiple objects. It's recommended that you create a new connection object for each LDAP server you want to connect to. ADFS can connect to multiple replica LDAP server automatically for like in the failover option in case it's specified. That one, for each case you can create a different one, like using the ADFS LDAP server connection, as you can see on the screen. Let's give an overview about the parameter, how they are relevant, for the connection information. You can see we can locate user objects in the user directory, like user container, users object class, LDAP, authentication mode. The claim for the authentication users, either anchor claim type, anchor claim type to mapping, and attribute, and you can do the general claim provider, which acceptance transfer rules enabled. Optionally, you can specify the suffix for your org. I think that's all what I had for you for today. Let's just summarize this section. Being able to use custom attribute, granting ADFS access to the custom attribute and to the attribute store, being able to configure attribute store connection strings, issue claim with a custom attribute, issue name ID from obq attribute, and connect to an issue claim from LDAP store. Next, we will have authentication, which is totally different topic. So for today, that was all what I had. hopefully you have learned something useful, and I shall see you in the new section of part 3. Goodbye.